Good morning. Gitungo Wamere is my name, serving at Mzalendo Trust in Kenya. Mzalendo Trust is a parliamentary monitoring organization. In Kenya, we work under 3 themes: inclusivity, accountability, and transparency. So to achieve the objectives of these 3 themes, we use civic tools. One of the oldest one being a searchable Hansard that is linked to the profiles of members of parliament who are on our website. So it tallies the number of times that they speak in parliament, they stand to speak on parliament plenary. So the promise tracker is another tool that came up as an idea after the 2022 general election in Kenya. So what happens during the election year, our website, mzalendo.com, is usually converted to a database of all politicians who are running for that particular election to make it easier for citizens to search for people who are running in their constituency. So the name, the political party, whether independent or not. So in 2022, we did an experiment of having a vote match. So what we did with this vote match was to collect all manifestos of political parties that were presenting themselves in that particular election. But as you may know, in our context, political parties do not really come up with manifestos in time. There are no ideologies. We don't have right or left, green or liberals. We just have an amalgam of politicians who come together to get power. Sometimes they don't even know for what reasons. So in 2022, we gathered those manifestos, and most of them released those manifestos when it was too late, 2 weeks to election. So we came up with that platform, posted all those manifestos, and put some policy questions for people to answer. And depending on how you answered those questions, you were matched to a political party that matched with your interest or your answers. So after the election, we asked ourselves, so what do we do with this vote match now that the election is over? So we picked the manifesto of the party that won that particular election and digested all the promises that they made in that particular election and came up with this promise tracker that we are going to look at it now. So the other thing that inspired this promise tracker was in the 2022 election, we saw that there was a drop of voter turnout. So in the previous election that was held in 2017, 77% of Kenyans came out to vote. But in 2022, there was a drop and only 65% came to vote. So there is also a challenge that when governments come to power, Kenyans do not know of their manifestos. So they only stick to the promises that are made on political rallies. So no one tracks their manifesto, no one tracks what has been fulfilled. And also there's no clear data to demand for accountability, because when you have data, you'll be in a position to demand for accountability. So this promise tracker, what it does is to bridge that gap with CivicTeC. So what is the promise tracker? So in that particular election, in that particular manifesto, we picked all those promises from the party that won. So forget about the opposition promises. We also have the promises by the opposition, but with our system of government, the presidential system, the opposition may not be in a position to fulfill what they said, whether in legislation or not, because when they come to parliament, it's divided into minority and the majority. So most of the times it's the majority side that dictates the agenda of parliament. So we also wanted to link legislative action to the manifesto. So what is parliament doing? What is the side of the majority doing to ensure that their manifesto has come to fruition? Also linking legislative action to manifestos, and also enable data-driven civic engagement. So in Kenya Kwanza's manifesto, the promises that they made in that manifesto, in total they were, when we digested, they were adding up to around 270 promises. And like I've said, in our context, we don't have right, left, green, or whatnot. So parties just promise, say, we will build a stadium in this city, we will employ 1,000 people, we will build 10,000 houses, government houses which are affordable. So we tracked those promises. So there are promises that the ruling government said they will deliver in 100 days. There are promises that they said they will deliver in short term, that is 1 year. There are those promises they said they will deliver in 2.5 years, and there are long-term promises that they said they will deliver after 5 years. Again then, after the election, again in our context, politicians may also come back to you and tell you, during roadside rallies, and tell you, again, we will do this beyond the manifesto, we will help you do this. So there is a section also on that dashboard that tracks the pledges that are given on the roadside political rallies. So that what the dashboard does now, it tracks by ticking projects that are completed, ticking projects that have been initiated, ticking projects that are pending, and ticking projects that are broken. Like right now, for the first 100 days, we have already ticked projects or promises that were broken. For the first 1 year, we've already ticked projects that are broken, projects that are completed, and projects that are pending. So this is how the dashboard looks like. So you can see over there the overview of all the promises. There were 270 promises. So far, 2.5 years later, only 5% of the promises have been delivered. So you can see there the general statistics. There are 107 promises that are not yet started, 120 that are ongoing, 7 that have stalled, 22 that have been broken, and 14 that have been completed. So that 14 is the 5% there, over there. So this is how they are divided, first 100 days. So if you click there on first 100 days, you'll get those promises of first 100 days, short-term goals, medium-term, long-term, and the new goals. So we use this in legislative monitoring. So we try to link some of the promises that have been delivered through legislation. It also triggers public debate. So citizens will come into this particular dashboard and check what has been delivered, and also local civil dialogues. So far with this experiment, what have we seen as impact? So 1 year later, after Kenya Kwanza government, there was a discussion of what has been delivered 1 year of Kenya Kwanza's government. So the promise tracker shaped that particular conversation, national conversation. There was a town hall that was aired live on Citizen TV, which is a national TV in Kenya, and the promise tracker was used as a basis of tracking what has been delivered. Just recently, the leader of majority in parliament was having an interview on head-to-head Al Jazeera's, and the promise tracker again was used in his questioning. So also the promise tracker is used in community barazas to discuss the government's scorecard. Last year there were popular uprisings in Kenya, and random young people came up with their promise trackers, tracking what has been delivered, getting an inspiration from this, tracking what has been delivered in specific sectors, for instance, in education, in health, and there was also some of them who did crowdsourcing of projects across the country, crowdsourcing photos of projects that have been stalled, projects that have been completed, and even some of them deciding to visit those particular projects and having a way of crowdsourcing those particular projects. So, in fact, there is another popular now promise tracker that specifically promises those, specifically tracks those promises that I've talked about of politicians, of the president promising along the way. When he walks and says, I've been in this town, I've seen you have very poor roads. In 1 week, I'll make sure this road has been repaired. So that one is tracked. Goes to another town, it is tracked. So after some time, they go back and check whether that particular thing was achieved. So what is the strategic long-term value for this promise tracker? So it's to ensure that democracy does not backslide in this sense, to ensure that citizens keep on speaking about government promises, keep on speaking based on data. So when there is a public baraza, that is a town hall, public, that's Swahili word, a town hall, they can use this and speak about the promises, speak about what has been delivered. And when the election comes, like now in the next 2 years or thereabout, in 2027, we shall be having an election. And we want to use this because we know the current government will come up with another manifesto. So we want to do the comparison. 2022, you promised this. In 2027, you're saying you deliver this. Do that comparison and tell them, you have not delivered this, or maybe you have delivered this, then why not? Why are you promising us something else? So it's also supporting data-driven journalism. Like I've said, when there are conversations in the media on the delivery of the government, this promise tracker usually shapes the conversation based on data. So they will count the number of projects that have been delivered, those ones that have not been delivered. And it will make sure that even when politicians are speaking, they are very careful, they won't lie because there is data to show. It's also to fuel informed civic participation. Like I've said, out of these, other random citizens, independent citizens, have come up with other platforms that track other things in different sectors. Also integrating PMO functions or legislative alignment and public oversight. So we usually do a parliamentary scorecard every year, and in the last 1 year, in the last 2 years, we have been doing a comparison of legislative delivery and also the government promises, the government agenda, and see whether the legislative output measures up with what the government or the majority side has promised as their government agenda. So the promise tracker, like I've said, bridges, enriches dialogue with data to demand accountability, which also fosters civic trust, transparent governance, and meaningful participation. Thank you so much.